Hey everyone, it's Mentha, and today I would like to share just a piece of my testimony on how I met my parents. Now, when I say parents, I mean the parents that had me and took me into their lives 11 years ago, so not my biological parents. Before I dive in, I would love just to give a little backstory on where I'm from. I was born in the Bronx. I was raised by my grandmother. We moved from the Bronx, we moved to Albany, and then to Schenectady. My grandmother, I can tell you, she was my everything. She was my life. She is all I knew. I was her home. She was my home. Now, I was in high school when things kind of went downhill. In about 2005, 2006, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And when I say everything went downhill, it really went downhill right before my eyes before I knew. Now, I'm going to be honest. If I can go back, I would do it all over again to take care of my grandmother. My life story, my testimony has made me who I am today, and I pray that what I've been through, I can share with others to be a light in their lives and let them know that they can get through whatever that they're going through as well. Now, my grandmother, I was about 16 when everything started to go downhill. I was taking care of her, taking her to doctor's appointments, bringing her to the grocery store. I remember pushing the wheelchair and tugging along a shopping cart. I remember when our washing machine broke and I had to hand wash everything and put it in the dryer. I had to make sure bills were paid. And I had a lot of responsibility for a 16-year-old. In April of 2007 is when life really changed drastically. She was dying and there was nothing that I could do about it, but I knew that I did not want to put her in a nursing home. A doctor recommended that a hospice will come into our lives and help bring comfort to her and to myself as we live out her last days. And the hospice nurse was Susan, my now mom. Susan, she was extraordinary, and there was something about her that I cannot, like at that time, I could not put a pin in it. I'm like, she's different. I'm gonna be quite honest. My grandma told me not to trust people and not to trust white people. So I had a guard up, but then I said, there's something different about this lady, and I have nobody else around, so I have to trust her. And she was a light like no other. When I met her, whoo, I wanted that peace that she had. I wanted the joy that she had. Now, moving forward, shortly before my grandma passed, her and her husband Peter, they came over for my grandma's last Easter dinner. Little did I know it would really be her last Easter dinner. I am a saver. I save everything, so I have a piece of paper where everyone signed in that was there for my grandma's last Easter dinner. And when I look at that paper, I can see Susan and Peter Welke on there. So moving forward, just revisiting the last few days before my grandma passed away, Susan stayed overnight to comfort my grandmother and to bring comfort to me. And can I tell you, I was like, who is this lady that would stay overnight for me, to stay overnight for my grandmother in the hood? And that night was the first night that I slept in my own bed. I was sleeping in the living room on the floor while my grandmother slept in the hospital bed. And I couldn't believe it. I was able to sleep through the night without any worry, and that was literally the first night that I've experienced that in so long. And I was just talking to her as I reminisced on 11 years of being back in New York, and I said, what made you stay overnight? And she said, honey, I knew that she was dying and I could not bear for you to be alone. And I promise I won't get emotional, okay? So a few days after my grandma passed away, and it was in my grandmother's will that I was to go to Philadelphia to stay with her daughter and her son-in-law. In Philadelphia, I did my senior year and my first year of college. And through those 2 years, I kept in contact with Susan and Peter. You know, I was checking in. They checked in with me, and I said, this is how it's going, and I would really like to come back to New York. Now, I was talking to Susan. I said, like, how didn't you and Dad come to an agreement for me to come back and stay with you, a complete stranger? You didn't know me. And she talked to her husband. She said, do you trust me, Peter? That's the words that she said. And he said, yes, I trust you. You know, they've taken care of plenty of kids before, their own kids. They've done foster care. And they believe they were following God's will. And because that they were obedient to God's call, I am here where I am today, and I am so grateful for that. When I came back to New York in 2009, I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I didn't really know these people, and over time, we came to an agreement that I will call them Mom and Dad. And I look back now and I'm like, where did the time go? Their love for Christ impacted me in a way where I said, they love Jesus, then I should love Jesus. And that's how I became a Christian. They brought me to church. They answered my questions. I got baptized. I got into ministry. I got married and I had kids. Let me tell you, Susan was my grandma's hospice nurse, and she was also my kids' labor and delivery nurse. No one can tell me that there's not a God. She was there at the end of life, at that point of time for me, and she was there at the beginning of life while bringing my kids into the world. My people, my relatives, my grandmother for death, and for life for my kids, all 3 kids. And how significant is that? And that's my story and how I met them. Susan was my grandma's hospice nurse. Peter, her husband, agreed that they trust each other and following God's will to take me in. And I just want to be the light that I seen at 16. I want to be someone else's light. I want to be able to take someone under my arm and say, hey, I'm going to be by your side. I don't know you. I'm not judging you. I see that we are different. We come from different backgrounds, but that's not going to stop me from loving you. So that's just a small piece of my testimony, and I hope that you're encouraged, and I hope that you are blessed, and I pray that you can be someone else's light. So tune in for another testimony time soon, and I pray that this was good to your heart and soul. And I'm also grateful that you have taken the time to watch my video. Be blessed.